Simple and plain. To be the best, you have to win. That's why I play the game.
So, when the Lakers traded for Dennis Schroder last season, we made that trade with the vision that Schroder was ultimately going to be our long-term point guard. However, Schroder was very inconsistent and was very adamant that he wanted to be the starting point guard from the jump. Even though from a team perspective, he was probably better suited coming off the bench, and in the end, it became very evident that he was ultimately just playing for a big contract, and then he would end up having one of the biggest bag fumbles of all time. But that's a story for another day. And as we all know, the Lakers ended up parting ways with Dennis Schroder this offseason. And since then, we've obviously made massive changes at the point guard position with the arrival of the superstar Russell Westbrook. And I made a recent video about how I think Westbrook will fit alongside LeBron James, so be sure to check that out after this video. But we also brought in a player who I think is my favourite pickup this offseason for the Lakers, and that's Kendrick Nunn, a dude who I'm labeling right now as the Lakers' official secret weapon this season. Now, if we compare Kendrick Nunn to a guy like Schroder from last season, we have a guy who is actually willing to do whatever it takes to win, to be a superstar in his own role. A guy that's actually willing to make sacrifices for the better of the team. And we've seen this when he was at the Miami Heat, where he played an effective role coming off the bench for them and even starting for them. And no matter if he was starting or coming off the bench, he was always one of their most consistent players and played particularly well against the Lakers in the finals just 1 year ago. Now, the thing that impressed me the most about his time in Miami is Kendrick Nunn never had a consistent role, and that was mostly due to Goran Dragic's injury woes. But he didn't let that alter his game whatsoever. He was always able to produce solid games night in and night out. And with Westbrook's injury history, it's going to be very important for the Lakers to have a guy like Kendrick Nunn who we can rely on every night and trust that he can play an effective role on this team no matter the circumstances. And the reason Kendrick Nunn can do these sorts of things is because he's kept his game very simple. Simple, but effective. Now, if you've seen Kendrick Nunn play before, he's not a flashy player. He's not a player who's going to get you jumping out of your seat. But what he does do is play winning basketball, and he can really do it all out there on the court. He's great at knowing when to drive to the basket, has an underrated passing game, can hit those mid-range shots, and then stretch out to the three-point line and knock down those threes at a high clip. He has a respectful 36% career average from the three-point line, but the thing that's most important about that is he's not afraid to shoot the three ball. You saw LeBron last year get on guys about not shooting the ball when they were wide open, and he's definitely not going to have that problem with Kendrick Nunn this year, because ultimately he plays with such confidence that he's never going to back down from those moments. And the thing that makes this signing so good for the Lakers is he doesn't have to rely on other guys creating shots for him. He can really go out there and create his own shot for himself whilst getting others involved as well. And that's just something that the Lakers really didn't have last season coming off the bench. We didn't have that guy who can just come off the bench and give us that scoring punch. We had guys like Kyle Kuzma, who was very rushed and very inconsistent, and Caruso as well, but he was more of a defensive-minded player. But none of these guys could really create their own shot and create for others like Kendrick Nunn can. And that's ultimately why when LeBron James and AD would come off the floor, we weren't able to score the ball consistently, and we would just go into these scoring slumps that would make us lose games. And that was definitely on full display in that Sun series when AD went down. We just really didn't have those guys who could step up to the mark and really knock down some shots and cause some trouble for the opposing team's defense. Whereas you have a guy like Kendrick Nunn who's already proven that he can step up in those sorts of defining moments. And a lot of people tend to forget that that Miami Heat team that went on that championship run against the Lakers, that was a very injury-depleted team. You know, Bam Adebayo went down, Goran Dragic went down, and ultimately Kendrick Nunn ended up being Miami Heat's second best player in that series behind Jimmy Butler. And if you really look at the numbers when LeBron, who was our main playmaker, was off the floor, the numbers are very worrying. But this year with a guy like Kendrick Nunn, we aren't going to have those lapses in offense because this guy can legitimately put the ball in the hoop. And then on the other side of the floor, he's even said it himself that he prides himself on the defensive end. So he's not going to be afraid to take on those defensive matchups against some of the best point guards in the league. And I think the way our offense will run this season is Frank Vogel's going to at least have 2 of our 3 superstars out there on the court at all times. So Kendrick Nunn is going to be asked to play either the 1 guard or the 2 guard, and I'm very confident that he's going to be one of our best and most effective players this season, because he also has the ability to play that combo guard role, whether it be at the point guard, running the offense. He can get guys involved, make the right pass and score his own shot, but then again he can also slide to the 2 guard and really play effectively off the ball as well, which we've seen throughout his career. So what that means is you can really play him at any time in the game with any superstar that we have. If he plays with Russell Westbrook, he can slide to the 2 guard and be an effective shooter. If he plays with LeBron James, he can play the point guard, run the offense with him, create his own shot, and he can also play with Anthony Davis, make a little, run the pick and roll, and really be a positive asset to the Lakers' chances of winning this year's championship. And I know Frank Vogel last year was very vocal about how much he loved Alex Caruso and the role that he played on the team. And he used to call him his little secret weapon, his little pocket rocket off the bench. And I think Kendrick Nunn's definitely going to slide into that role this season. And I think Frank Vogel will ask Kendrick Nunn to play a lot of minutes and put him in those times, those crunch times at the end of games, because he knows that he can really rely on a guy like Kendrick Nunn to get the job done. And if you look at Kendrick Nunn's salary around $5.9 million and you compare him to other backup point guards around the league, I think we definitely got a steal. I mean, $5.9 million for a guy who could honestly get around a $10 to $15 million contract on the market just goes to show how much of a good job Rob Pelinka and the front office are doing. And on the other side, it also goes to show that Kendrick Nunn, having signed for less money to come to the Lakers, has one goal in mind, and that's to be a valuable member of a championship run this season. But let me know your thoughts in the comments about the Kendrick Nunn fit on the Lakers. How well do you think he can fit alongside our 3 superstars this season? And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss more videos just like this. But for now, it's been your boy Jay from Lakers Exclusive. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.